Yo, it's Tynee Talks. We gonna talk about it right here. Yo, you ready? It's Tynee Talks right here. We gon' talk about it right here. We gon' talk about everything you like. I'ma make it real, real clear. It's Tynee Talks right here. We gon' talk about it right here. I'ma talk about everything you like. I'ma make it real, real clear. Cause it's Tynee Talks. And I'ma talk about it. Yeah, cause it's Tynee Talks. And I'ma talk about it. About it. About it. About it. And welcome to this episode of the Tynee Talks podcast, the podcast that entertains and educates, the podcast where you come to laugh and learn. Remember, Tynee Talks and you listen. This month, May, is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I am kicking off a series for the entire month entitled the Get Your Mind Right Mental Health Series because we want people to get their minds right. If you are an avid listener of the Tynee Talks podcast, then you know that mental health and mental health awareness is near and dear to me as my mother battled with bipolar disorder, depression, and schizophrenia for most of her adult life. And I really have a wonderful guest with me on today. I have Miss Ayana Fordham, who is a licensed clinical social worker with her master's from the Michigan State University. She is currently stationed in Okinawa, Japan, right? She's in Japan, y'all. She's a native of Flint, Michigan, but she's across the seas. And she currently works for the behavioral health of the United States of America's Marines and Navy. I think I'm saying that right. And she is also the owner of Clockwise Incorporated that provides therapy, consulting, and mental health education. So without further ado, please welcome Miss Ayana Fordham to the show. Oh, 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 oh.
Hi. Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you.
welcome, welcome. We're on two different time zones. So it's early here in the United States of America, Texas, Dallas, USA. And you, what time is it over there with you?
It's about 11:15 in the evening on Saturday night.
Whew, chill. And today's we're talking about burnout because
Absolutely.
burnout can mess up your mental health. So I've been a victim of burnout. So to my listeners, what is burnout? I'm glad you asked. Let me give y'all a little definition. Burnout is a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It is characterized by three dimensions: feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job or things in general, or feelings of negativity or cynicism. There are five, well, Ayana's going to get into all that, but from what I know, there are five stages of burnout: honeymoon phase, onset of stress, chronic stress, burnout, and then habitual burnout. So let's dig deep into that. So first, Ayana, again, welcome to the show. How do you feel being on the Tynee Talks podcast?
I'm excited. I'm excited.
You
I am definitely
excited?
excited. Yeah. And I'm passionate about this topic. It's like, so you'll have to like reel me back in because I'll get to going. So
We want you to go
definitely.
because the people need to hear it. I know you got some great jewels, some great jewels information for my listeners and the talkers out there. So, I always want to know what got you into the business of social work and why is mental health awareness important to you?
Well, I grew up in a household where my grandmother was a social worker. Ironically enough, I didn't know that that was her actual college degree till I literally was at Michigan State and doing a paper. And as I'm reading, I see her name. And
Oh.
I'm like, oh, wait. And so, but growing up, I just grew up where what we did is we helped people because that's what she did. So we were constantly in the community. And then as time went on, I learned, my mother and my dad had issues with alcohol, substance abuse. And I learned that a lot of it, stemmed from mental health, stress related issues and different things that had happened in their lives. And so, it became a passion for me to want to help people and to want to help. I started out with children, wanting to help them and then wanting to just help them understand, what their parents are going through so that they, and, how could they help and how could they, also recognize signs in themselves. And just as time went on, I find myself, I went to school, started out, with that initial little associate's degree, in social work and found myself kind of going in a different direction and later came back. But overall, I've been doing this 20 plus years in some capacity. I've been working in social services and human services for over 20 years. And so I just now find myself here in Japan, but I still love it, I guess is what I want to say. And
I
being
think that,
here,
oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, I just was gonna say, and being here working with our active duty military, has really made me gain a new appreciation for it because I've learned that there's a whole nother level, right? So yeah,
I
I just
think
want to
when
be
you
able to
go
help
into
people.
social work, you have to have a heart for it. And you definitely have a heart and a passion for it because that profession has high turnover rate as well as high burnout.
Yes,
So,
yeah,
with all of the trauma and tragedy that is experienced on the job, some people don't have the mental bandwidth to handle such a high stress job. As we noted earlier with the phases of burnout, high stress is right there on the list, right?
well, it's the root of it.
Mm-hmm.
In all actuality, it's the root of it. And it, when you were talking about, the different stages and stuff, one of the things that I want people to recognize is that burnout, when we Google and we research, the first thing you see is, it's related to your job.
Mm-hmm.
But in all actuality, burnout occurs when you're in college and you're, when you're trying to do multiple things and you're still trying to get that degree. Burnout can occur, for that housewife that is trying to balance the 3 or 4 kids, the husband schedule, or the single mom, that's trying to do it all. And burnout can occur just in those everyday tasks that we're trying to do, right? You got people that they work every day, they volunteer in the community, they may work at the church, they're doing multiple things, but all of it in some capacity is work, right? So I just want to make sure people don't get caught up on thinking it's just your traditional career job, right? Like going out of the home into an office. Some people are right in their home working and they still burnout still happens because stress, it builds and it builds and it builds. So yeah,
They say that stress is the silent killer.
and I'm a testimony because
Why is it
it is.
referred to as the silent killer?
Part of it is because we don't recognize the signs, right? And so that is what I wanted to talk about too, and make sure that people knew what they were, because when you know, then you can maybe identify them, right? And try to prevent them or get it in front of it. So some of the things that happens with stress is, you know, you become physically and emotionally exhausted.
Mhm.
Um, and so like, you talk about the honeymoon stage. So the honeymoon stage is when it first started happening, right? You started
Mhm.
taking on those extra tasks at work and you're doing a little bit more, and you're trying to do work, and then you've got family that maybe asks you to do something, and then, oh, the church needs you to do something, and you're doing it, and you don't realize that, when you come in every day, you're just, you're emotionally and physically drained, and it's
Mhm.
starting to creep up on you. And so with stress can come in the forms of headaches. You might start having those, so basically physical symptoms, right? So headaches, or you got that, all of a sudden you got shoulder pain, but you ain't injured your shoulder, or you've got muscle and joint pain, but you ain't been out running at the track. So like, it's like,
Yeah.
what's going on, and then you have those behavioral and emotional signs, right? That you don't really understand. You become a little bit more irritable and short with people. You mentioned being cynical and negative. It's like you start to, everything you say, you like, yeah, whatever. You become just so negative, and you don't realize that it's happening, and sometimes people around you, they don't say anything because they just expect for you to keep going. As long as you're doing what they want
Then
and
it's
you're producing, then they not gonna say anything, right? And so
right.
you have those emotional and behavioral, and then you go into like those next stages, that onset stage. You notice that, you know today you just don't feel like getting out of bed, but you get out. So now you 10-15 minutes later getting out of bed. Tomorrow it becomes 30 minutes later, or you're noticing that you got timelines at work and you start to not meet those timelines, right? Because now you just don't really care. You become withdrawn, you start to isolate, and it's slowly coming up on you, right? And so the behavior patterns become: you're late for work, you're tardy, you're not doing the same quality of work that you did at first. And a lot of that happens, especially for people that have been on the same job
For
for
many
long
years.
periods of time. It happens because they haven't found a way to recreate the job and find a
Right.
way to love it.
I want to
And
scale
so,
back to something that you said you become irritable and, essentially sleeping more, withdrawn. That's the term that you withdrawn. And so we live in a social media world where you're getting all these mixed messages, and people are like, they'll make a meme or something, and they're just like, check on your strong friend, or they'll say, those aren't your friends if they're not checking on you, 10 or 20 times a day. And many people don't recognize the depression symptoms. They don't realize that someone is being withdrawn. And so that person is looked at negatively themselves.
yep,
Oh, she don't even call me no more. She don't even hang out with me no more. What kind of friend is that? And it's like, well, there's some things going on. So I think, one of the remedies for it is just to extend a little bit of grace, because we never just know what the next person is going through.
absolutely. And that, I tell people that, and I try to post like on my Facebook page, I'll try to post and remind people that, you know, let's take, for example, when somebody has lost somebody and then you don't call. If I'm going through a storm, oftentimes people aren't there for you in your storm because they're either in the middle of theirs, going into one, or they're coming out of one. And sometimes, especially with burnout, you don't know how to articulate it because you don't know what it is your own self. You don't recognize it because when you're going through and you're burning out, you're like a car that's running out of gas. So your car is still going, and until so you go through the chronic stress stage, right? So just everything is happening at one time. Then now you're right in full blown burnout. Then it becomes habitual because now you get in burnout and somehow you find a way to kind of rejuvenate yourself, but it's short term, but it's just enough. So it's kind of like the car is not quite on E. So you can put a little farther, and then you get to where it's just habitual, and the car's going to crank out because you keep forgetting to put the gas in. You keep forgetting, you're not stopping. And so with burnout, you're not stopping. You're not taking the break.
I really like that analogy of running out of gas, and what we do as humans. I know a lot of ladies do this. We're guilty for it. We'll see that little needle going towards E, and we'll say, I can go 25 more miles. Or
Yeah.
I'll fix it tomorrow. I'll get some extra gas tomorrow. And then you're on the side of the road. You're literally and figuratively figuratively broke down on the side of the highway.
You're on the side of the highway. And that's exactly, part of why I'm passionate about this is because of me, right? Someone asked me when was the first time I experienced it. And I said, that's a good point, is to recognize that we often go through burnout multiple times, right? I've been really good about, I will quit a job. That's why travel social work life became perfect for me, because usually, and I didn't recognize that it was burnout, right? But usually after about 3 years, I'm going to go to me another agency, because this right here, I can't do no more. Not recognizing that I'm burnt out from it. And all I needed to do was reinvent myself in the job, right? To do my self-care, take the time off that I needed, ask for help. That's the biggest thing that we do. Two things to help us prevent burnout and recover from burnout. The very first one, say no unapologetically. Learning to tell people no.
The power of no. Life-changing.
Yes. And even on your job, what happens on the job? We're working to get to the promotion, right? Or we want to make sure we keep the bosses happy. And so they start asking us to do things that are out of our scope. And so in my profession now, it's always what's in your scope of practice. But even for the person that's working at General Motors, or the person that's working at McDonald's, who maybe don't have these clinical titles, but you coming and asking the cook to do what the cashier's supposed to be doing. And so the cook is running from the kitchen to the front trying to do the cashier duties, right? Or, you're at General Motors and you're asking the line person to do what the HR office does, that type of stuff. And we do it, right? We find ourselves doing it because we either need our jobs, which, that'd be the first thing. People need their jobs, so they don't say no. But we have got to learn to do the little things, understand our contracts, our job descriptions, and learn how to say no and use the resources available to us and ask for help. We got to learn how, it doesn't matter if you're the CEO or if you're the receptionist, you got to learn how to ask for help. It doesn't matter if you're burning out in college, you got to learn. One thing I tell college students is, why do you think they give you an advisor? Yeah, it's there to help you to kind of learn, which classes and keep you on track for your graduation, right? But they're also there, especially the good ones. And there's some good ones. I had a good one.
I was a good one.
Yeah, thank you.
We're there to help you like mind dump and air your grievances, right? I wanted to go something you said about the self-care aspect or reinventing yourself within the job. Because I actually thought about that. You are essentially you're a traveling social worker. You've lived in states. Now you're in another country. You lived in Hawaii. You've lived in California in this particular job role. So I know that actually helps with burnout. Because each time you go to a new place, it's a fresh start. It's a new set of people, new set of issues. So you can get that, that breather.
That woosah. I can woosah.
You just got to woosah. Because sometimes you need that. And the good thing about, I feel like in your job, in between you going to your next assignment, you get basically a break.
I take a break.
And that's what I want to say normal or traditional brick and mortar people, or even people working from home, that we don't get. Because part of what you said is that people don't call off. People are afraid to call off work, right? We don't want to look like the lazy employee, or maybe sometimes we feel in our roles that I'm the only one who can do it right. I'm gonna keep going. Or we want to, like you said, please the boss or the supervisor. So I know I'm on E, but I think I can go 12 more hours or pick up another, shift. And we shouldn't be afraid to call off. Like I used to tell some of my students who work jobs or who were trying to better themselves, but their, jobs wouldn't maybe give them a time for their classroom. Like, if you died in this instant, they would have your job posted in 24 hours.
Let me tell you, 2013, I'm gonna go back 2012. I was working 2 jobs. So before I started traveling, right, I worked for the state of Michigan full time, 8 to 5. My office was in one of the hospitals back at home. I would get off work. So in 12, I was still in doing grad school, but I was interning. So I would get off work, go to the other hospital to do my intern for my graduate degree. And then my mom passed, right? But so 2013, I done finished school. I got hired in. So I'm working both jobs now. Literally getting off 8, working 8 to 5, getting off, changing, and then going straight, leaving McLaren, going straight to Hurley, and working from 7 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. So all I got in there is a 2-hour window. And not recognizing the signs, not recognizing that my nutrition, I had, a fluctuating appetite. I wasn't getting good sleep. My sleep hygiene was all over the place because I didn't have time to sleep. I wasn't doing any self-care, and just, I was just going. Well, guess what your body go do to you? Just what mine did. I had a stroke.
Oh my God.
And guess what they did? Just what you just said. They kept it moving. Them jobs didn't stop. They just politely plugged somebody else in my little space. When I returned back, it was like, oh, you all right? Okay, here you go. Here go these 900,
now how you
applications
doing?
for you to do. Never mind that you just almost, and it got to the point to where, recovery was all of 2014. Girl, 2015, God said, I've had enough. And I had to leave one of them. And I left the state and just stayed at Hurley. Well, then remember that you're in burnout, and then you get to that habitual, because it's repeating, things are repeating itself, and it's getting worse. Was burning out in the ER. And that's when I literally decided to be a travel social worker in like 3 days. A nurse told me about it. She was like, call and check. And I was like, they ain't got that for social workers. I always knew they had travel nurses, right? Because I got family members.
And traveling physicians, right?
Yeah, so I knew they had it for nurses. She was like, I literally called. The lady was like, send me a resume. Tynee, baby, I sent that resume. She was like, I got your interview in California on Friday. This was on Wednesday. She was like, I said, I can't get to California on Friday. She's like, oh no, it's a phone interview. 5, maybe 10-minute phone interview. I got an email Friday night. I gave my resignation on Monday.
One will.
I had 2 weeks to sell my house, and I've been doing it ever since. But I want people to know everybody can't do that. So I want people to know this. You full-time people, one of the things that you look at when you decide to take a job is your benefit package. And one of the benefits that you look at is, how many vacation days are they going to give me a year? Guess what? Your job knows you need them. Take them.
That's right.
They wouldn't give them to you. Your sick days. Everybody needs a mental health day.
Yeah.
We all need a mental health day.
And speaking of that, I used to be in the mindset of, I'm not going to use my sick day unless I'm sick, like physically, like coughing, sick, flu, or if my son was sick. But as of late, I've come to the conclusion that I'm going to use those sick days for a mental health day, right? To refresh, to rest, to get to unplug for a self-care. That mental health day might look like going to get your nails done. Self-care looks different for everybody. Somebody just might want to sit and do Candy Crush all day. Somebody might want to sit and do puzzles, and that just brings them solace, that brings them peace, that gives them their internal that they need. So whatever it is that you need in order to light the fire back out from the burnout.
And that's what it is.
You need to do.
It's lighting the fire. You want to, with burnout, you want to do 3 things. You want to recognize your signs and symptoms, right? You want to recognize them. Then you want to recover from it, right? So in that recovery stage, that's what part of that self-care is going to be, right? It's just kind of just revitalizing yourself, that building your resiliency, right? And then when you have your resiliency built, you want to make sure that you don't revisit that same place. So the way that you do that is you constantly keep doing these things, right? So, you want to make sure in that self-care that you're paying attention to your nutrition, right? Eating, and drinking, your water, but eating healthy, healthy eating habits. You want to make, and it may be the little things with that, right? I want to make sure people understand, keep you little snacks in your bag, like peanuts or, things like that, that can help your mind throughout the day, right? We often don't think about, because at work, what do? We just keep going. And usually what do we make sure we get? A lot of people depend on what? Coffee. Caffeine is not our friend in that situation.
I'm not a coffee drinker, but I have worked in every space that I've worked in. It's like, don't talk to me till I get my coffee. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not a coffee drinker, so I'm not dependent on the caffeine.
But a lot of people, they do. You get in, especially high-paced jobs. I tend to work in the hospitals. Every hospital, the break room, if it don't have nothing else, coffee. And now working with the military, right? What I see a lot is the caffeine dependency, the nicotine dependency, and it's like they just use that to keep going, or energy drinks, especially amongst young people, not just with the military. Young people, they like them energy drinks.
The 5-hour energies.
Yeah, get you something else, because what happens with energy drinks, it give you energy, but you come back down, and you come down hard. And so, so nutrition, your sleep, and then learn how to deal with stress in the moment, right? So that means, like, the boss just came in, you already got 5 assignments due on Friday, and they just added 2 more. And now you like Rosie from the Jetsons. You might be too young to remember Rosie.
I
But Rosie
remember
from
Rosie.
the Jetsons was the robot. So, and I like to use her as an analogy, because what would happen is, she be a minute a day, she chilling, cleaning the house. Soon as like 3-4 o'clock hit, here come the family. Kids want something, the daddy wants something, the mama wants something, even the dog wanted something. And Rosie would get to the point to where they be done drove her so nuts that head starts spinning, smoke coming out her ears.
The nuts and bolts are falling off.
Yeah, she just on overload. So what do you do in that moment when you're at work, and it's 3 o'clock, and they come in and tell you you're supposed to get off at 4, but they tell you, well, I need you to get this done before you leave. So that means you're going to be there till 5. So learning how to do like deep breathing, learning how to step away from your desk, go in the bathroom, do some diaphragmatic breathing. There's mobile apps that people can use. There's Breathe to Relax. There's Virtual Hope Box that has like some meditation and things that you can do. And there's so many others out there, but learning to do some things to manage stress in the moment, right? Because sometimes we don't. And then the other thing is just learning to, like, I had to learn this, bite my tongue. Because sometimes the burnout be done hit me so bad, and now I'm irritable, and it just kind of, what comes up comes out, right? So just learning to manage it in the moment.
Learning to manage in the moment is so good. Just even taking those 15-minute breaks. There was within the past year and a half or so, I learned how to take the 15-minute breaks that you are required by law to have.
Yep.
You work a full-time job, you are allotted your lunch and 2 15-minute breaks. And I wasn't used, like when you talked about the body aches and the pain and how the stress is just piling up on you. And a lot of you may not know that stress will come into your lower trunk, your back, and that's where it will sit, and it will rest, and it will form a whole community back there. And so you need to take those 15-minute breaks to go walk.
Yeah. Stretch. I'm gonna tell you another thing.
Water and hydrate.
Use your devices. Right now, we are in a world of technology. So make your devices work for you. People go out there and pay all that money for them smartwatches. Well, they smart for a reason. Use them. They will tell you when to stand. It's time to stand. If it tells you that, stand up. It'll tell you believe it or not, it'll tell you it's time to
Get
breathe.
moving. It'll say get moving.
Yeah, but it'll tell you it's time to breathe. Because some people don't realize you sitting there at your desk, but you really not breathing. Like you're not breathing from your diaphragm. You're not taking,
Taking
those
shallow
deep
breaths.
breaths.
You're like,
You doing, yeah, you do, yeah, and they don't realize it. So those watches will tell you it's time to breathe. It'll tell you it's time to walk, and you can set it, like you said, it's time to, drink some water. But another feature that your phone or your watch that I encourage people to do is related to your sleep. One of the most powerful things that can impact you in terms of burnout and stress is not getting quality sleep and not having opportunities to sleep, right? So setting your do not disturb. I'm way over here. My family's on the other side of the world. But the one thing that I learned is that between my sleep hours, there is nothing I can do for you. And it's gonna sound very shallow. Some people think they say I'm cold, and don't have no feelings. But even if somebody is dying, what can I do to change that outcome by you waking me up? And I'm still gonna be in Okinawa, Japan, where they not letting me even fly back to the U.S. because of COVID. So I'm sorry. You can tell me in the morning. I'm gonna get my sleep, because it don't make no sense on me not getting no sleep, and then I get stressed out and I'm not having no sleep, and then I become delirious. I can't concentrate. I got daily fatigue. That ain't gonna bring my loved one back. And so
it's only gonna make you more irritable because you're gonna
and so I encourage people to get your sleep and do it unapologetically. So set your do not disturb. So if calls can't come through, people can still leave you a message, but they can't interrupt your sleep. The only thing that my phone is set that can interrupt me, like my daughter, obviously, the call, if she calls twice, it'll wake me. But we have what's over here is an emergency alert because of where we are and because of weather. They have to know where we are, so they will send it what's called it's a message, and when the message comes, you have to respond and acknowledge, because that's how they track us to make sure we're safe. So I wish they did that everywhere. When people be having hurricanes and earthquakes and stuff like that, if they sent you an alert to that way, that's how they check us to make sure we're okay. So I have to do that. But other than that, I do not let my sleep. Like when I get through talking to you, I'm going straight to bed, and I will not be interrupted by, no, it better be a fire or I'm not moving. So I just want people to know that, and to try to start using that feature. And getting their sleep.
Well, thank you, Ayana. You gave us some really great tips today. Some of the things that I want to leave the listeners with that you said was recognize your symptoms. Pay attention to your body. What is your body telling you? Is it hurting? Is it aching? And I really love how you use all those examples at the beginning where you like, well, yeah, shoulder hurting, you ain't playing tennis. What's going on? Recognize, recover, resiliency, and don't revisit that trauma or that stressor. If you can avoid it, even if it's that negative coworker at work. If you don't have to have a whole bunch of interaction with that person, go ahead and limit the interaction. Nutrition, pay attention to what you're putting in your bodies. If it has a lot of salt, if it's a lot of sugar, that plays a role in our bodies. Internally, it shows up externally, causing us to have more stress, causing us to be and causing us to have more burnout. There's a song that I love by Mason Betha, and it's called Breathe, Stretch, Shake, Let It Go. If you can breathe, stretch, shake, and let it go, go ahead and do that thing. Ayana, I want you to leave our listeners with some last minute tips or resources that they can utilize to help with burnout.
Okay. The first thing is that I want to encourage them, when I said ask for help, that includes seeking professional help as well. don't be ashamed, embarrassed, or afraid to seek out mental health professionals. So you have, licensed clinical social workers that can provide therapy. You have clinical counselors, psychiatrists, psychologists. Start with your primary care physician and getting some help if you're not sure where to go. You can also find providers in your area on Psychology Today. You can also go to the NASW, National Association for Social Workers website, and then also the SAMHSA website. And then if you just have hit rock bottom and you don't know what to do and you have those days, and it's unfortunate, but some people do, where they feel like, they're having thoughts of dying, and they feel like they just can't make it anymore. I really want to encourage you to use the National Suicide Prevention Safe Helpline. And that number is 1-800-273-TALK. And they can go to safehelpline.org. But I just want you, and then another good thing for some people, if you are spiritual, seek out your spiritual leaders as well, because they at least can help and talk to you and help you to get to the right direction as well.
These are all wonderful and great tips, Ayana. I'm so glad that you came onto the Tynee Talk show to
Thank you.
with burnout, especially in the midst of a global pandemic where I'm sure people are burned out. I'm so glad that you let us know that burnout is not only related to working at a physical job. Burnout happens across many spectrums and in any instances, even in our own personal homes. And so I know people are burned out from just being in the house and they want to get out.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we're going to be sure that down below in the show notes that you guys have access to all of the information that Ayana provided us with. Again, if you are needing professional services, Ayana does provide it for you in her Clockwise Incorporated business, where she does provide therapy, consultation, and mental health education if you're doing it. So in true Tynee Talks fashion, this is your moment to give your shout out. So you're giving a shout out to for Mental Health Awareness Month.
I want to give a shout out to all of my colleagues, all of the social workers everywhere, the clinical counselors, the psychologists, the psychiatrists. I want to give them a shout out and I want to encourage them to recognize burnout in themselves, and be a support to each other. And then always, I have to give a shout out to Flint Town. I don't care where I'm at. I'm from Flint, Michigan. Woo-woo. So I always want to give a shout out to Flint and my family that's back home. And I want to give you a shout out. I do. I want to give you a shout out tonight because I just admire you so much. And I just appreciate that you are using your talents to be a voice and an advocate for the community. Your show is a form of advocacy. You bring resources to people, you raise awareness on various topics. So I just want to give you a shout out and tell you, keep it up. I'm proud of you. And I thank you for it. And I thank you for just allowing me to be here.
I thank you. That touched me. Wow, guys, did you hear that? Thank you so much. I want to give a shout out to you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for showing little Black girls, little Black boys, the youth, the unlimitless things that you can do with a social work degree. I think many times people just reduce it down to CPS workers, and it's so broad. It is so rich, and they can even travel the world as you are doing to help people mentally through social services. And so you just give hope. You open a new door, a new avenue to people, and we love to see it. Keep sharing your travels and keep sharing your adventures, and let them know that they can do so much with that. What is it? The LCSW. And even
Yep.
that BSW, you know, that's the springboard to getting to it. And so shout
Yep.
out to you. Shout out to those people that are in a job who or in their home or in their relationship or anything and they're feeling burnt out. It's just a little flicker there. I hope that this show ignites you a little bit and adds a little bit more spark to the flame so that you can get out of that burnout stage and you can get to shining like the sun and the star that you are. So,
Yes, indeed.
talk. If you have any questions, Ayana will be leaving her social media there down in the show notes, and you can share with us right now before you go. How can they follow you on social media?
I am under for Instagram. It's Kimono Blue. I had to get just the Okinawa feel. So it's Kimono Blue. And then I'm also on Facebook under Ayana Marie.
All right.
Maree.
So you can hit her up on Ayana Marie, inbox her if you have any questions, even if you want to know how.
Oh, I'm on Clubhouse.
Oh, a clip.
So I'm new. Bear with me, y'all. I'm learning. Yes. So yep. And I'll make sure to get you all the information too. But yep.
And they'll
So
be
I will
down
let
in
you
the
know when
show.
I'm doing a pod.
Wonderful. So again, this is Mental Health Awareness Month in the month of May. And Tynee Talks will be doing a series all month long with Get Your Mind Right. Today I featured Ayana Marie Fordham for Burnout. I'll be featuring Paris Star with Black Male Trauma. And I'll also be featuring K.L.O.C Faces to tell you how your mental health is associated with how you feel about your outward beauty. So it's
Yes, indeed.
things coming up. Be sure to tune in to the podcast that entertains, it educates, that makes you laugh and learn. Remember, Tynee talks and you listen.
All right.